go for these little engagements, and if you see your opponent moving out, move across the map and like avoid their army. Like don't necessarily always go for a top. Don't go for a head-on-head engagement with lizards. Looks like this lobby is now populated. Mishi and DutchDefender, look at that. Perfect timing on this rambling that I was doing as we hop into the last game of the day. Mishi spawned in the upper left against his opponent on the right-hand side. DutchDefender in the green. So Mishi fighting for his tournament life, and DutchDefender just kind of fighting for that competitive spirit that all great tooth and tail players have. Red Knight of Showed asks, what are the things with dynamite on their back? Those are toads. Those are like banelings from StarCraft 2, if that is a familiar reference. Otherwise, they're like kamikaze units, so they will explode if they come into contact with units. If you kill them before they can contact a unit, they will do no damage. So they're a little bit risky in that sense, because even when they're doing their job, you're losing them, and so that can be a bit of an economic risk. And they're really good against lizards in particular, because lizards have to be so close to attack, so they're really dangerous for them. In this game, we will not see any toads, but we will see double moles. Both of these players taking a pretty identical deck setup, with the exception of Badger instead of Owl for Mishi. We'll see if it even gets to that point. From what we've seen of Mishi so far today, he's favoring this kind of early, about 2-minute and 40-second mole push on the back of a bunch of squirrels.
We've yet to see the mole versus mole matchup, though, right? We've always seen one player going moles, the other player just trying to hold back the force of them. But now we're seeing both players do it, so I'm wondering how those interactions will go. If they'll go in for that 240 attack timing at the same time. See how that works out.
Yeah, I think we saw it was that one game of Bannard against Mishi. I think we saw exactly one game of mole on mole action. And it kind of became this like seesaw, this teeter-totter, tug-of-war, whatever analogy you want to use, between the two players. Like someone would build a bunch of moles, they'd lose them all, and then they'd build a bunch of defensive moles, and the other player would lose against that defensive push, and then they'd move across the map, and it was pretty nuts. So even if we did see that one game or not, I'm excited to see it again. DutchDefender staying true to his name and probably tweaking the map RNG definitely gets an easily defended base here. It's going to be way harder for Mishi to push in there compared to the other way around.
The campfire down to the south is pretty cute as well, on this little island out in the middle of nowhere. I can't imagine that'll ever fall. He's probably guaranteed that campfire for the rest of the game, and until it runs out of food as well.
Yeah, that little sneaky one down, that's going to be so far out of the way. And DutchDefender kind of smartly grabbing that thing, because one risk of having a very easily defended base means that it's also a very easily contained base. And so maybe just trying to get ahead of that tactic by Mishi, he decides to take this gristmill out in the open and is kind of moving his army into a forward position to try to protect it, because there's no really easy backdoor way into DutchDefender's base. Like Mishi can sneak around in the watery path here, but if DutchDefender's doing his job of scouting, he's going to see that a mile away.
Yeah, I really enjoy the forethought from Dutch here. And he could have easily taken this one right outside his base and probably gotten some farms for almost nothing, but that would have left him in a really bad map advantage. But now he's in a good spot to defend and potentially expand elsewhere after this.
Yeah, good move for him to kind of move out and expand. Because I guess another point about DutchDefender's base is he doesn't have a ton of build room, and so that oftentimes allows your opponent to like kind of gauge how big your army can be. You have kind of a maximum size because you can't build much. And Mishi, at the 3-minute 30 mark with 3 Falcons, is going to make for a toad push here. A mole push rather. And so he's going to possibly move out as soon as he gets one more of these up. He's moving across, getting these toads tanking. He's going to lose no Falcons so far. They're laying down the hurt on DutchDefender's army, and they cleaned it up. It's so crazy how kind of one-sided some of these fights can look, even though they had somewhat similar compositions in that going into that fight. And DutchDefender's just going to be like, that's too much for me. I got to tap out. So super fast, effective push coming out of Michi there to take game number 1.
So that was an issue of, I guess, misplaced food there, because, let's see, DutchDefender spent 60 food on an MG, a farm, and a mill. So that's 180 food outside of maybe more squirrels or maybe even a couple more moles. So because of that, he just straight up lost the engagement because he just didn't have as much army as Mishi did.
And didn't we see an MG too in a weird place?
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, so that was maybe not a weird place. I mean, it wasn't like Dutch Defender picked a bad spot there, but it turned out to be a bad spot for where Mishi was coming from. So that's unfortunate. And hey, this is another tile set that we haven't seen. This is a new tile set as of the latest patch. So this is kind of like the green desert. I don't know which one it is exactly. But on the right hand side, we've got Mishi going up 1 game in this series, looking to close it out for his tournament life, and Dutch Defender on the left hand side, hoping to dash those hopes and take Mishi out in this best of 3. So both players are not changing anything about their decks, going with the exact same thing, and I think that's probably fair, because there wasn't really anything about deck choice that lost that game for Dutch Defender. It was just kind of the timing of things, as AV Ultima was pointing out, that kind of like Mishi came in at just that. He's got this bonjour timing, as they say in the StarCraft community. He's got this great timing sense of when to attack, and so as soon as Dutch Defender threw down those farms, Mishi had 4 or 5 moles that he pushed in with and just was able to end the game right away.
Yeah, I don't mean to speculate about future patches, but it's even in the patch itself. We most likely will be seeing a mole change of some type, because those timings for these mole attacks seem to be very tight and very easy to pull off, for the most part, for the mole player. So usually when you start to end up in those sort of positions where, I can just do this without being punished too heavily, is when you'll probably start seeing change.
Yeah, and granted, we've seen that when the mole push does not pan out well, it is pretty tough for the mole player. It is a significant investment, but as AV is saying, the timing for it is so relatively quick that it's like, if you're able to punish it works out well, but it's so hard to punish that it just doesn't happen that often. So Dutch Defender going up for some early Falcons here. So far, based only on this tournament, as my experience, Chameleons seem to be the better choice against moles specifically. But who knows if Dutch Defender's paying attention to that or watching these streams. But
I don't know why I'm not seeing those more, or at least from the players that just don't want to play mole. I guess it is the harder strat to pull off, and people will tend to go towards the more dominant strategy in terms of because these players want to win. They want to get into that top 4. So instead of going for the I think this will probably work, instead they're going for the I know this will work strategy.
Right, and maybe I wouldn't have guessed that chameleons would be the answer, because sometimes chameleons can be a little underwhelming in low army counts overall, and so it's not super intuitive that you'd want to take them. And so, who knows what this is all speculation, just kind of fill in the gaps while these players are going up. Mishi going up to 16 farms.
Did we miss a gentleman's agreement of some type? Because 16 farms before the 4-minute mark is something we do not see very often.
Yeah, I wonder if these guys are just really trying to power up their mole push, because it's pretty interesting that they haven't tried to punish or capitalize on either of this stuff. I haven't paid attention to the vision, so they know that each person has this expansion. Wow. I don't know exactly when. 2 Badgers!
Coming out from Mishi before the 4-minute mark with 16 farms. Someone's fishy. What did they do? They said, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, we can't spy on their private Discord messages, but we're thinking there's something fishy going on here, possibly. We've got an owl coming out from Dutch Defender, along with some more Falcons. How in the world how did Mishi afford 2 Badgers? They're like on equal economy, but somehow Mishi's got 2 Badgers on the way, and Dutch Defender's only got 1. But I guess he's got those 4 Falcons, so that's probably where that extra money came from.
Before he put down his first Badger, I think Mishi was only sitting on 2 or 3 Tier 1 Warrens, so that's probably what allowed him to get that second Badger out. And they're both on the way. This is... If Mishi micros well, I think this will be tough for Dutch Defender to hold off. But luckily, he's in a fairly defensible position in this water here, so maybe that'll be what keeps him alive.
Yeah, and he's thrown down his front line there with those MGs across the water. I think that has to be Dutch Defender's plan here. He's gonna be the Dutch Defender and stay back and not take this fight unless it's over this water. So that will serve him well if the fight happens there. But the unfortunate part is Mishi is throwing down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 moles and gonna push across this map. I don't care how slow this water is gonna make him. That's gonna be a lot of health to deal with.
Oh boy. This will just come down to the defense here.
Holy cow, yeah. So one owl might be a little bit tough because they're just not going to build things up fast enough. And Mishi's going to start moving across the water. These moles are going to be putting on the hurt, slowly going across to the MGs, taking them out. Mishi is looking okay, but DutchDefender is kind of smartly pulling back and just using the high ground to his advantage. And as he's pushing it out, I think he's slowly doing okay in this fight overall. He's definitely managed to push Mishi back and survive the storm of the mole push. Taking a quick accounting of the structures that he lost, it wasn't that bad. He just lost a few MGs and a few Tier 1 Warrens. And he's going to continue to push across the map. He's not going to be able to kill that Badger, but he managed to keep his Tier 3 and most of his Falcons alive as well. And really good hold by DutchDefender.
Yeah, I don't know why Mishi decided to attack from the probably worst possible angle. I guess he wanted to try to pick off some farms, but he didn't really have he decided to do it with his entire army. He brought them all into this little corner where the water is. And he ended up losing one of his Badgers almost instantly, and they didn't even spin up. But now we see another engagement going.
We see them fighting it out again. These Badgers just kind of microing back and forth. DutchDefenders just having to pull off the retreat because this DPS is too high. I didn't even notice that he lost a Badger in that first fight. It was all so crazy with that many moles. And this time Mishi is definitely engaging a little bit better. It shows just how much of a difference that water made for DutchDefender in that last fight. And Mishi's going to try it one more time, but going to go for a little bit of cheeky high ground farm killing. And DutchDefender's forces are going to clear out the underbelly of Mishi's army, but those Badgers are still there, still putting in some serious work. We'll see if the Falcons can out DPS them. The owl goes down. It no longer drops any nice when it dies, which is unfortunate, but both Badgers go down out of Mishi, and DutchDefender once again seesaws his way back into an advantageous position.
I don't know why he keeps bringing his Badgers into the water like that. I mean, yeah, he killed off some of those farms, but I think he would have been better off after killing those farms, backing out, taking up his advantage, and then resupplying. But now he's in poor disadvantage here because he lost all that money in Badgers.
He's in a tough spot as they continue to fight it out across the middle of this map here. DutchDefender doing a great job of keeping some of his Falcons alive because he's going to need them. Mishi has been relegated back to the Stone Age, basically, with 24 squirrels on their way against similar composition of DutchDefender along with those Falcons. So based on just a head-to-head engagement, DutchDefender's looking like in a pretty good spot, but Mishi's going to throw down 4 moles to see if that's the last bit of tankiness he needs to maybe try to close out this game.
I guess considering we're in such a low eco game, him losing his Badgers just for those 4 farms actually means a lot because now he's up, or Mishi is up, that many farms.
That's true. That's a really good point. And they're going to kind of continue to fight it out across this gristmill. Mishi's definitely taking a kind of better engagement here with just 16 squirrels to the now 2-1, almost 0 squirrels of DutchDefender, still keeping those Falcons alive. So that is enormous that he's able to keep those alive. In such a low econ game, this is going to get a little bit more and more painful to resupply even squirrels. And so we're looking at DutchDefender kind of on the back foot, but at the same time, if he can get a good enough engagement with those Falcons, he might be able to clean out the huge squirrel ball of Mishi.
Yeah, here's what I was talking about before, is that, yeah, Falcons are good, but if you don't have a Tier 1 army backing up, it's going to be a problem.
And so we've got the probably final engagement of this game. These Falcons are putting in some good work. DutchDefender's doing a good job keeping him back, and they're going to clean up the last remaining squirrels, and he's going to have to push his advantage here because down to 0 farms, he would be starving if it weren't for the campfire, but he's going to keep on pushing because this has got to be it. I'm surprised that we're seeing him decide to retreat, but I guess Mishi is actually starving. Maybe he saw that pop up on the minimap and decided, all right, cool, I don't have anything really to worry about right now, because otherwise a retreat could be dangerous in this spot because he's also on a pretty low economy.
Wow, that one mole in that fight did so much work for DutchDefender because it like tanked in just enough shots for his T1 army and his Falcons to stay alive to eke out that extra damage. Seeing those moles come in time and time again.
Really, really cool to see. This is a more okay way to see moles, I feel like. Not any kind of like crazy, hard to defend push, but just like doing their job as tanks. And DutchDefender doing a little bit of micro dancing. Get these moles in the front as he's going to push in again. This one hero Falcon, he's going to micro it back. He's got to micro it back. Oh man, that's going to even out the battle a little bit. He's still got more squirrels to the 0 squirrels now, almost, of Mishi. He's kind of got to shoot. I don't know if he can't see that little squirrel in the background, but he's just getting some free kills right here. This little squirrel is going to be a hero if DutchDefender doesn't kind of realize what's going on. It's the one squirrel to save them all. He finds it, and it's still alive. So Mishi microing this one squirrel for his tournament life here.
You cannot lose this mill.
No, this would be the nail in the coffin of his starvation, because his only other mill would be down on the bottom area, and Mishi only has one Warren, so even if he were to sell it, he would have to sell it to rebuild a farm and have no units to defend anything. So DutchDefender, still resupplying slowly but surely, is sitting in a pretty good position. He has to sell off his Falcons, but 7 squirrels to 3 means that he's in an okay spot, and he throws down a mole to be safe.
I think this is probably going to be the final push here. Mishi is only on 1 Warren and 1 farm to the superior army of DutchDefender. Well fought.
What a game. This was great. I mean, a couple bad engagements for Mishi across the water with those Badgers. He lost them maybe a little bit unnecessarily a few times, but just really solid defensive, patient play out of DutchDefender. He smartly sacrificed his front line at one point to get a little bit more resupply and drag Mishi into a harder to retreat position as he cleaned everything up with his Falcons. So, really great game, and we've got ourselves a series on our hands.
Yeah, as you mentioned again, that those Badger engagements in the water, I feel like he would have been so much better if he maybe attacked from the south on land. He kept putting his army in such a poor position in the water. Losing both his Badgers, I mean, how many Badgers did he lose that game? 5? 4? Still, that is way too much money.
Definitely 4.
That is way too much money to lose in a tier 3 without. And what did he do? He killed a handful of farms with that? I mean, imagine if he would have taken it in a better position.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it might have been just kind of the adrenaline of moment and everything, but I mean, like, when you build, what was it, 7 moles, I think he was just kind of thinking, there's no way DutchDefender is going to be ready for this, because this patch is still relatively new. I don't think Mishi was, like, a pretty heavy mole player beforehand, so, like, moles are maybe relatively new to him. I was doing air quotes with my hands in case anyone was curious, but they might be relatively new to him, and so that might have been just, like, a little bit of a miscalculation on Mishi's part there, because yeah, a water engagement is always a tough one to take. So moving into this game, this series deciding game, we've got Mishi spawning on the right hand side in the red against his opponent on the left hand side, DutchDefender. It looks like we might have a Howling Vale map that isn't 90% water here.
Oh wow.
So that's neat.
You're right. And still with a pretty small amount of, wow, there's almost an equal amount of campfires to mills.
Oh man, yeah. We got some, is it 3 campfires I'm getting a count of here?
3 campfires.
Yeah, so I think campfires spawn in the order of 1 to 4 campfires on ranked, so we'll see. So Mishi taking that really early one instead of a farm, so we'll see if that's to kind of create a perhaps forward position that will allow him to take that other campfire much more easily. That's kind of what I'm thinking, that he wants the build space to start fortifying that high ground. We'll see if that's what he decides to do. Otherwise, they're just matching each other on econ. It shows Mishi at 6 farms, but really he's at 7 and now 8 farms because that campfire doesn't appear as a pig on the map. Yeah, and I think this is Howling Vale. The other one, the one with tons of the winter map with a ton of evergreens with snow on them, is the
District No?
District No. I think that's the other one. So people in chat are just kind of asking which map is which here, and so we're kind of learning as we go, calling them out.
Yeah, I think District No has much less houses and broken down buildings and more trees, while Howling Vale has a small amount of mills and more houses and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty neat little tile sets here that the developers have gotten for us. And sure enough, Mishi has decided to get both of these campfires, so getting a nice little economic lead off that and kind of establishing his front line in such a way that neither of these campfires are going to be subject to any kind of easy ring around the rosy attacks from DutchDefender. So it's interesting to see the Fox pick coming out of DutchDefender. I don't know if Fox synergizes well or at all with moles, or if DutchDefender is going to elect for any kind of mole play. It seems like from the last game, DutchDefender was really just taking the moles as a response to Mishi's moles. He wasn't trying to do anything too crazy on his own. He just kind of had them just in case, and kind of use them in very sparingly in those last engagements to really create a big health buffer to allow his squirrels to clean up the squirrels of Mishi.
I'm wondering if for the reason he picked up the Fox is that if it goes to another really low eco game, the Fox is pretty good because you're pretty much getting free units, and if you're low economy, then you're just draining your opponent. So I guess he's hoping to bring the game state back to that, and maybe just continue applying pressure that he couldn't with. Maybe he could with a Badger or a Boar.
Yeah, I think that could be an interesting way to play it out, because sure enough, he's going to go for that early Fox, and we'll see kind of how it plays out. Like, again, as a reminder to anyone either totally new to the game or new to this patch, the Fox got her damage back, but she has 10 less health, and she stays rooted in place a little bit when she shoots. But looks like we might not get to see this Fox because it's not even building yet, and Mishi is throwing down 5 moles, 6 moles for a big push, and I'm not sure DutchDefender is going to be ready for it,
yeah, he
despite
needs to sell
his
that
excellent
Fox.
defenses. Yeah. So we'll see. He's going to engage across. He's definitely going to be losing some Warrens and farms here. It all comes down to just surviving this, though. So even if he loses some stuff, he just needs to not lose and take fatal damage. But it's looking pretty rough for him. Mishi is got a pretty overwhelming force, and he is throwing down those Manor Moles as well in the process. But is DutchDefender just barely going to be able to hold off with this one Falcon? Only time will tell. Mishi's going to pull back and just maybe sit on his advantage, because DutchDefender has been knocked down to 6 farms effectively, because that campfire against 10 farms of Mishi.
Well, what I said is gonna happen. He's gonna get that Fox out, maybe if Mishi decides not to attack for some reason, and then it's gonna be huge in this low eco game. But it looks like Mishi is gonna come in, and that Fox probably won't have a chance to do what she's good at.
That Fox is still about 30 seconds out, and with these moles coming up in 10 seconds apiece, this is going to be a really tough hold. DutchDefender doesn't even look like he's moving his commander too much. I'm just trying to decide if he's a little demoralized by this mole push here. Mishi's probably going to be able to close out the game here, and sure enough, he destroys that. You need to destroy all buildings, including campfires, to win, well, all economic buildings to win the game. Mishi's just going to go for that Foxhorn and close out the game and the series. We can now see what the bracket looks like, AV. So, really solid performance. These army graphs look insane.